What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for game week 35. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players being moved in and out of our squads and discuss whether they are good moves or not. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with Mo Salah. Another game week has gone by and he's got no attacking returns. And people are starting to get frustrated. Nearly 200,000 FPL managers have sold him ahead of game week 35. And if we look back to when he came back from injury, he had the Man City game in game week 28, which we won't count because he was a sub in that game. And obviously, it's a difficult fixture anyway. But from game week 30 onwards, he started 5 out of 6 game weeks and had 2 goals and 0 assists. It's not really good enough considering the fixtures that Liverpool have had and also the price that he costs, right? 13.6 million. And he just hasn't looked fantastic in a lot of these games. And it's just not really clicking for Liverpool. A lot of people saying that maybe they've just run out of steam towards the end of the season. They were never expected to be at the top anyway, and it's kind of starting to show now. And obviously, Jota's injured. It's not clicking with Nunez either. It's just not looking great for Salah in general. I will say, though, he did still put up 0.82 expected goal involvement last night. It was 0.67 against Palace in game week 33. Like, he's still got the underlying numbers. The returns just aren't coming. And if you look from the eye test, if you want to call it that, it's just something's not quite right there with Liverpool at the moment. And obviously, you've got the rotation that's happened over the last couple of games as well. Bearing in mind, it's a Wednesday evening to Saturday 12:30 kickoff. There could be even more rotation. Now, do I think that Salah's going to get rotated against West Ham at home? Not really. I'd be quite surprised about that, like missing 2 or 3 game weeks. But I guess it is a possibility he sees reduced minutes in that match. I think we're at the stage of the season now. There's only 4 game weeks left. A lot of people have used, most of their chips now, or you're maybe wildcarding in game week 35. What you do with Salah probably depends on, how well set up you are for 37 and whether you need to use a bench boost. If you're on a wildcard, without Haaland being out, I think it's quite hard to justify Salah, especially if you're looking to bench boost in 37. Even if you're not, there's quite a few good midfielders around the 8 to 9 million price point. And if you want a few of them, it also gets quite difficult to fit Salah in. So I almost certainly won't be going with him on wildcard. If you're in a position where you're quite well set up for 35 and you've got a couple more weeks to get to game week 37, you're actually feeling okay about it. I don't think there's like this mad rush to sell Salah this week for West Ham at home. But I also think for a lot of people, he probably is the player they're most looking at selling. Like if you've got Gordon already, you're keeping him for Sheffield United at home, the double in 37. You can't get rid of Palmer. Spurs players are obviously got a double this week. Salah probably is one of the key players that people need to kind of sell. And once you do that, you've obviously got money that unlocks all your other moves as well. So I think I'm kind of in the camp where I think it's fine to sell Salah this week, but I just think for some teams, if you sent them to me, I'd be like, well, you could just keep him one more week. Let's not forget that West Ham just conceded 5 to Crystal Palace. I don't think it'll be quite so bad this time because they've had a week off. And obviously when they played Crystal Palace, they just played Leverkusen in the Europa League as well. And that would have taken a lot out of them. So I'm not necessarily expecting Liverpool to go and win, and put 5 goals past West Ham. But I think it'll be a good game for them. And they're going to want to bounce back because obviously Klopp's leaving at the end of the season. The title now looks like it's over. You don't really want this downward kind of trajectory to carry on. I mean, it might do, right? But I don't know. I think they'll be fine against West Ham. And in general, I think the fixtures for Liverpool are quite good until the end of the season. And Salah almost becomes a bit of a differential at this point, albeit a very expensive one. So, in general, I think it's fine to sell him. But as someone that is going to get rid of him on wildcard, I would not be surprised if he goes and bangs a few goals against West Ham because he's still putting up the numbers even though the performances don't look great. And obviously he's done it time and time again as well. Yes, he's going through a bit of a bad patch right now, but West Ham at home is a good fixture. So sell him if you need to, but don't be in a rush to get rid of him at all costs is what I would say. So N.Jackson is picking up some new owners this week. He's had over 100,000 transfers in already ahead of a 4-game week schedule for Chelsea, which includes 2 double game weeks. So you've got Villa away and Spurs at home this week. It's West Ham at home in 36. Forest and Brighton both away from home in 37. And then Bournemouth at home in game week 38. And I think for the most part, those fixtures look pretty good, especially for an attacker. But let's be real. N.Jackson is Chelsea's Darwin Núñez. He's incredibly frustrating to own for FPL. He's very good at getting chances, not so good at putting them away. And you can see that in the underlying numbers, right? His expected goals per 90, non-penalty, are 0.55, and his expected assists are 0.11. Pretty decent numbers, but the goals per 90 are 0.4. So he's underperforming on his XG, and I don't think anyone will be surprised about hearing that. So do I think he's a good option going forward? I think he is, because I would always just take the extra fixtures. And I know at some points this season we've had the narrative that double game weeks are not worth it, but look at game week 34, right? Crazy things can happen. And I just think the fixtures for Chelsea look quite decent. He is going to continue to get chances. You've just got to hope this is the period where he actually puts them in the back of the net. And also his minutes are good as well. Even with Nkunku possibly coming back soon, that guy's been coming back all season. I don't think he's a major threat to N.Jackson. Now, with so many fixtures in a short space of time, is he guaranteed to play them all? No. But you think he'd miss out probably one at the most, given what his recent minutes have been in that number 9 position. Like, he's started every single game since game week 24. The yellow card threshold's not an issue either. I think he's just a good option to own right now. You've just got to hope you're on the right side of luck with him, because he's not one of those forwards like Watkins, for example, that will score the chances he gets, right? We know that. I've said it already. So I like him. 6.8 million is a good price. I think if you consider, let's just assume that Haaland is fit for game week 35 and everyone's going to own him. You've got 2 more spots to fill. I think Isak's quite popular, even with Wilson back. So there's one more. Who are you really betting against? Like João Pedro and Højlund, who have got doubles in 37. I don't think that's a big issue, because you get an extra fixture this week as well. Watkins, potentially. Can Ollie Watkins in 4 games outscore Jackson in 6? It's possible for sure, but that is a bet that I'm willing to take, especially towards the end of the season, and especially when Jackson is quite a big differential. His ownership will continue to go up this week, absolutely, but overall he'll still be quite low owned, I would say, because people are not very high on him as an option, which I think is completely fair enough. The other thing to say is, if you do want to go all in on the doubles for Chelsea, Palmer's obvious if he's fit. There isn't really too many other obvious players, especially attackers, that are going to get regular minutes and regular chances. Like Gallagher's minutes are good, but he's not someone that's going to get in front of goal a huge amount. So Jackson kind of almost becomes a bit of a default pick. So I quite like him. Am I going to be saying that by game week 38? Probably not. So Fabian Schär is one of the most popular defender transfers in again this week. Over 100,000 new owners already, ahead of a pretty good fixture schedule for Newcastle. So they've got Sheffield United at home this week, Burnley away in 36, a double in 37 of Brighton at home and Man United away, and then it's Brentford away in game week 38. Schär is absolutely nailed. You've got goal threat on top of potential clean sheets as well. I think things look pretty good. And if you're wondering where the clean sheets might come from, Sheffield United at home looks really good. Burnley away is not bad either. I wouldn't say that's a guarantee, but there's definitely a chance of getting one there. And even Brighton at home in 37, I don't mind, because their attack has been a little bit hit or miss compared to last season. We'll see what they do against Man City tonight. Maybe they'll surprise us. They do have a lot of injuries as well. Man United away and Brentford away a little bit less so in terms of clean sheet potential. But, with the goal threat that Schär has, and the fact he's nailed on right, I just think he's a nice option, especially if you're looking to bench boost in 37. That being said, is he the best Newcastle defender to buy? I'm not as sure about that. Now, I really like Schär, and I think if you've bought him, it's no issue. But Davern is now 1.2 million cheaper. And if you look at the goal threat of the 2 players this season, Schär is sitting at 0.07 expected goals per 90. And if you look at Davern, if you want to check all this stuff out, Fantasy Football Hub, all the other tools as well, links in the description as always. Davern is at 0.12. So he's actually had slightly higher goal threat so far this season. Now, these things can change over time. And to be honest with you, if I was betting money on who's going to score more goals between now and game week 38 between Schär and Burn, I would put my money on Schär, because we've seen it time and time again over the last couple of seasons. But I don't know if that's worth paying 1.2 million for. Like 4.5 million for Dan Burn is pretty good value. The thing is, for a lot of people, if you're on wildcard or if you're selling Salah, there's a lot of money to go around. So it's quite easy just to buy Schär, and I think that's probably worth doing. But I would also consider what your transfers are going to be later on. Like, I've just spoken about Salah and how people might want to sell him, but there's still part of me that's looking at game week 38 with Wolves at home thinking I might just want one last shot at Salah. And it's probably going to be easier to do that if I've only spent 4.5 on a Newcastle defender rather than 5.7. So I would just consider things like that. It is not me sitting here and saying that Schär is a bad option. He's absolutely not. And I would like him in my team. And he's currently in my wildcard team as well. But I think if money gets tight for both the team I want to have now and the transfers I want to make in the future, I might just go down burn. And years ago, right, we used to say, unless there's a good reason to pay extra, always get the cheapest nailed defender from a team. And I think Schär probably is slightly better for set pieces, but not enough to warrant that extra in price. Like going for Trent over Van Dijk, you absolutely pay the extra, especially if it's over for, especially if you're bringing in the defender for like a 4 to 6 game week period. But with Schär and Burn, I'm not sure there's enough there to warrant the extra cost. I mean, I could be sitting here in game week 36 saying, well, I knew that Schär was higher goal threat. Why didn't I just go for him? But it's a lot of money, so just consider that. But either way, I think a Newcastle defender looks pretty good despite their injuries. All right, Darwin Nunez next, and I don't really have a huge amount to say other than it's probably time to get rid. I'm just not sure he's worth this constant headache. And I know some of us are going to sell Nunez and buy N.Jackson. It's going to be exactly the same, but at least Jackson has the minutes and the extra fixtures. Right now, even with Jota injured, you can't guarantee that Nunez is going to start every game for Liverpool because Gakpo seems to be a little bit back in favour now. And at the weekend, if he's available against West Ham, it could be Diaz, Gakpo and Salah front three. Now, that's not guaranteed because apparently last night, Diaz was supposed to be on the bench and Gakpo wasn't able to make the game, and that's why the switch happened. So it could be Nunez, Gakpo, Salah. And look, Nunez could do really well against West Ham, but generally we've only got 3 forward slots. And I think right now there are definitely 3 better forwards to fill them with. Like, would I go out of my way to start taking hits to get rid of Nunez for a different single game week player if it looks like he's going to start against West Ham? Not necessarily, but in general, I just can't really see too many reasons to keep hold of him. And I don't want to be like too harsh on the guy. Like, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter from Liverpool fans, obviously super frustrated in general. But Nunez has still scored a goal. A goal every other 90 minutes, basically. 0.5 goals per 90 minutes he's running at, but that is below his expected goals. And sometimes he just makes the easiest chances look so difficult. That one against Everton last night, where he had the whole left side of the goal that he was looking at free, and he just shoots it straight at Pickford to the right. It just doesn't make any sense. It's almost, maybe this is just cliche at this point and just something that everyone says, but it almost feels like when he's got time, he's just worse. Like, he can finish. We've seen it. The goal against Bournemouth, the goals off the bench against Newcastle. He can finish, but sometimes he just makes the easy ones look so difficult, and it's just so frustrating to watch from an FPL point of view. So, look, if he starts against West Ham, would I be surprised, a bit like with Salah, that, you know, if he came away with returns? No. But long term, and obviously we're only talking 4 game weeks at this point, there's better forwards out there. Go and get Isak, go and get Jackson, bring Haaland back in if he's fit and you don't own him. Maybe even get Ollie Watkins, right? There's just better options. So Bruno Fernandes cannot stop scoring at the moment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my transfers recently in tomorrow's team selection video, but I cannot believe how badly selling Fernandes in game week 31 has gone. Since then, he scored 6 goals in 4 game weeks. So he's had a penalty against Sheffield United and Bournemouth, scored another goal in both of those games, also got an assist against Sheffield United. So it was an 18-pointer last night, 15 points against Bournemouth. He scored against Liverpool, scored against Chelsea, blanked versus Brentford in game week 30, but before that it was a goal against Everton, assist against City, and assist against Fulham. So there's only one game out of his last, 8, where he's actually blanked. And the fixtures coming up are pretty good for Man United as well. So in game week 35, you've got Burnley at home, Palace away in 36, a double in 37 of Arsenal and Newcastle at home, and then Brighton away in 38. Now that double game week on paper doesn't look that great, especially from a defensive point of view, but from an attacking one, I actually think it's okay. Like, Arsenal have defended extremely well this season, best defence in the league for sure, and away from home they've had a lot of clean sheets, but I still think Man United score in that game, and I think they get goals against Newcastle as well. And the thing with Fernandes is, right, over the next few game weeks we're going to be talking about different players that people want to bring in for bench boost, and there's going to be lots of question marks about some of them, whether they'll even play both games, how many minutes will they get. You just don't have those worries with Bruno Fernandes. And I don't think he's the most exciting pick. The underlying numbers are not fantastic. 0.17 expected goals per 90, 0.28 expected assists, but he's always on the pitch for 90 minutes. He's on penalties as well. There's just a lot to like about him as an FPL pick over the last 4 games. He will start all 5 of those games if he's fit, and he'll almost certainly play 80 to 90 minutes in every single one. Man United are in the FA Cup final, but I've spoken about this before. That match is 6 days after game week 38. Ten Hag didn't really rotate much last year. He just always plays. So I really like him as an option. Is he going to go and get another, 4, 5, 6 goals over the last 5 game weeks? Probably not, right? These things don't tend to continue for too long. But either way, without the hindsight of what's going to happen over the next 4, I think he just is solid. One thing I will say is if you're struggling for money and you can't afford Fernandes, I still think that Garnacho is a good option. He has seen a few reduced minutes games, before game week 34, but he was back to playing 90 minutes against Sheffield United. He is firmly first choice in that 11. I think he's another one that could start every single game. I don't think you can guarantee that like with Fernandes, and you cannot guarantee he's going to go and play 90 minutes. But he's also only 5 million. He's 3.3 million cheaper. And I think if going for Garnacho enables all the other players that you want in your team, then I definitely still think he's a decent option. But Fernandes right now is probably the best because you know exactly what you're going to get. And don't, especially if you're on wildcard, right, don't kid yourself that you're going to wildcard in 35 and by 37 everything will be perfect. There'll be some suspension, there'll be some injury that comes up, and being able to rely on players like Fernandes is kind of handy. Similarly, right, if you're not wildcarding this week, some of you probably have a lot of kind of flags and players to deal with. You're looking to shift the double game week players in 35 and 37. Sometimes just bringing in a player like this and then not having to worry about them is kind of nice. But you do have to see it the whole way through. If he blanks against Burnley, you can't stop panicking. Either way, Fernandes is good, but I also still like Garnacho as well. All right, let's stick to Man United and talk about one of their defenders next. Dalot has had over 50,000 transfers in this week. And all I can really do is provide a word of caution. And I'm sure it's something that many of you are already aware of. And that is that the Man United defence is not very good. They've been a shambles for most of this season. They've given up a lot of chances. Bottom 5 for expected goals conceded. Even last night against Sheffield United, a really good fixture on paper, they still find a way to concede 2 goals. And I just don't see where that changes over the last 5 fixtures that they have. Like, where's the structural change, the tactical change, the personnel change that's going to massively alter how many chances Man United give up? I just don't think it's there. So if you're buying a Man United defender, just be fully aware of that. That being said, do I hate bringing in Dalot or Maguire as an option, especially for bench boost in 37? Not entirely, because on paper, Burnley at home is still a good fixture. Despite what I've just said about playing Sheffield United, there is a chance of a clean sheet. Palace away is probably going to be difficult because obviously Eze and Elise are both fit at the moment and they're a completely different attack. Plus Mateta's playing great as well. The midfield is decent too. So they will cause problems for Man United. And then Arsenal and Newcastle will probably both score as well. The reason why I don't mind Man United though is you've got cover this week against Burnley at home. And there aren't a huge amount of great defenders in game week 37 anyway. So if you're going to bench boost a bad one, at least go for one that's going to play, 90 minutes in basically both of those games. And Dalot hasn't not played 90 minutes for a very long time now. The last game where he didn't play 90 was in game week 18 against West Ham. He missed out completely. And that was it. Since game week 3, every match he's played 90. So I think for that reason alone, he looks quite good. Like if you think about the other defenders with doubles in that week, you got Man City ones. You can't necessarily be completely sure they're going to play both games. You could definitely take a risk on a Diaz or a Vardio, and they probably are better than Dalot, but you've got that kind of constant headache about will they or won't they start. I think a lot of people will go for Porro if he's fit. He's definitely better, and I do like Newcastle defenders as well, but I don't think that Chelsea defenders are necessarily better. 2 away games, plus, Gusto always seems to have a little bit of a knock, and Brighton defenders, I just don't think they are better than kind of Man United ones. So it almost comes down to like a default choice. If you want a bench boost, Man United are just not bad options. If you don't have the bench boost, or you just want to go for more solid defenders like from Arsenal, perfectly reasonable. I just don't think Man United are a complete avoid. I do think there's a conversation to be had about whether Dalot is worth the money though, because he's 5.2 million, and for 4.2 you can get Harry Maguire instead. So a full a full 1 million less, and obviously still going to go and get you the same amount of clean sheets. He's not going to go and get you a goal and assist every single game week, but still a good option. I think with Dalot, he's absolutely nailed on. With Maguire, once, players like Cambuala, Evans, Varane, Lindelof, if they can come back, there is a bit of competition there, Martinez too, but I think Maguire's probably first choice at the moment. And if he's fit, he'll probably start every single game. Plus, the others have always got injury concerns and stuff like that. So if you want to save the money, I like Maguire, but I do see Dalot as a more attacking defender. It's just whether or not he's worth that 5.2. But overall, I don't hate Man United defenders, but I'm on wildcard, and even in that situation, they're not a complete lock for me. So Bukayo Saka not so popular this week, over 100,000 transfers out already, probably for two reasons. A minor one is that Havertz and Odegaard smashed him in game week 34, so some people might be just switching Arsenal midfielders. But the main reason is Arsenal don't have any double game weeks left this season, and people are just switching to double game week midfielders instead, especially on wildcard. And having looked at my wildcard quite a lot, I feel like out of defenders, midfielders and forwards, midfielders are probably the toughest position to justify single game week players. There's just so many options, right? You got Foden, De Bruyne, Fernandes, Garnacho, Gordon, even Barnes as a punt, Son, Maddison, Palmer, etc. Brennan Johnson people are looking at. It's quite hard to justify Saka over any of those players that have got the extra fixtures, especially the ones that are going to play every single game. Whereas for defence, you could go for Arsenal defenders up front, even outside of like Højlund, Isak, Jackson, Haaland. If someone wanted to go for Watkins, it could just about work, right? Whereas with Saka, maybe not quite so much. That being said, Arsenal, the title is still in Man City's hands as long as they beat Brighton tonight, but it's close between them and Arsenal. Saka is going to start every single game they have left. He's probably going to play close to 90 minutes in all of them as long as he can stay fit. He's on penalties. And also, maybe the biggest thing, every fixture that Arsenal have left is quite good from an attacking perspective. Now, it might not work out like that because the closer you get to, that title in game week 38, the more pressure will be on. And Spurs away and Man United away, both those teams have, ways of causing you issues. But ultimately, going into both of those matches, Arsenal will be favourites. And the Spurs defence and the Man United defence are not very good. And then you've got Bournemouth at home in 36 and Everton at home in 38. So if you wanted to, if you really didn't like 5 double game weekers in your side, in your midfield, or you're not bench boosting, for example, I really like keeping hold of Saka. Even if you benched him this week and in 37, having him for Bournemouth at home and Everton at home looks really good. And there is every chance that he could outscore some of those double game week midfielders. I think in general, if I wasn't wildcarding this week, I probably wouldn't be in a rush to sell Saka until closer to 37. I would just want to leave that option open because Spurs away and Bournemouth at home are good fixtures. And then when you get to 37, you can decide whether to sell him to a double game weeker or just to hold on to him. Even if you're bench boosting in 37 and you've got loads of other transfers to worry about instead, bench boosting Saka against Man United away is not really a problem. So again, a lot of this is going to come down to chip strategy, how many free transfers you got, how many other issues you got in your team to deal with as well. And on wildcard, most people probably won't have Saka. But I think for non-wildcarders, I would see that as a bit of a differential now. And if I could keep him for the next couple, I really like the look of that because I think he is a solid FPL pick and he has performed really well all season. I think he's actually currently the second highest scoring midfielder. Let me just check. Yeah, just 6 points behind Palmer and 13 ahead of Salah. So it's been a great season for Saka, already past the 200-point mark. And that is going to continue over the next 4 weeks. Let me know what you think about him. Should he be kept on wildcard or should he be kept generally? Or should we just change him to a double game week player? If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, rate 5 stars even if you're listening on podcast. Maybe a few less stars for that mistake there. And I will catch you again tomorrow. I'm going to have team selection in the morning, final thoughts in the afternoon, and then we'll do deadline stream on Saturday. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.